The man accused of reselling stolen goods from other stores at his own shop is not headed to prison. Jared McIntyre pled no contest to criminal conspiracy back in February and was sentenced today to 5 years of probation. As part of his plea, 2 other charges were dismissed. McIntyre was the owner of Nebraska Precious Metals. His store manager, Melanie Pursley, is charged with theft by receiving property, conspiracy to commit theft by deception, and racketeering. Her trial is set to begin in August.